The story kicks off with 15-year-old Hajime Kugeyama sitting in class, stunned by how unpredictable life can be. He spots Akira Momose, someone who went to the same elementary school as him, and is thrilled to see that in this small countryside town of Aomi, with just 5,000 people, she's now his classmate once again. Smiling to himself as he remembers how they never spoke back then, his suspicious friend notices and asks why he's grinning. Bursting with excitement, Hajime suddenly jumps onto his desk and shouts that he's decided to fully enjoy everything life has to offer, both the sweet and the sour. His confused friend, unable to connect Hajime's words with his sudden desk climbing, hands him a manga novel to distract him. Although Kugeyama tried to talk to her back in 4th grade, Akira never responded. That's why he still finds it surprising and a bit shocking that she ended up at the same school again. But realizing he's out of his league, he quietly buries his feelings. During lunch, his friend suggests they get something to eat, but Kugeyama is suddenly stunned when Momose calls out to him with a cold expression. Without giving him a moment to react, she steps in close, so close that a flustered and panicked Kugeyama leans against a tree for support. She places both hands on either side of him, blocking any chance of escape. Then, in a blunt tone, she unexpectedly asks what his favorite food is. He feels confused, unsure if Akira is actually speaking to him, or if she's only doing it because he picked up some trash from the road earlier that morning. Unsure how to respond, he glances at his burger and decides to answer with something unusual. He nervously says that his favorite food is bagna coda. When Momose doesn't react and just looks at him silently, he starts to worry. Did he say something strange? Before he can think further, she steps even closer. Completely flustered, Kugeyama is so overwhelmed by her presence that he loses all strength and falls to the ground. Blushing and eyes shut, he mumbles that his favorite food is omelette rice with a big fried shrimp. Seeing his bright red cheeks and his nervous silence, Momose smiles softly. She tells him she likes this part of him, that he hasn't changed at all since childhood. Then, with graceful ease, she stands up straight and slowly walks away. Kugeyama, still sitting with his back against the tree, is left stunned by her sudden words and actions. Meanwhile, as Momose returns to her group of friends, they rush over, full of excitement, eager to hear how it went. The moment they ask, her cold expression melts into a flustered blush, her eyes teary and her heart racing. She shyly admits she asked him what his favorite food is. Her friends burst with joy, thrilled by her progress. They hug her tightly, squeezing her with excitement and cheering her on. With big smiles, they encourage her to keep closing the distance between them, one small step at a time. As Momose shyly explains how nervous she felt speaking to Kugeyama, one of her confident friends asks whether she followed the plan. Still blushing, she quietly shows them the mission sheet. Today's task: ask Kugeyama his favorite food. Below it, the next goal is clear: make his heart skip a beat. Momose's expression shifts to determination as she decides to start practicing omi rice immediately. Meanwhile, on the other side of the school, Kugeyama's friend, carrying snacks, is surprised to find him hiding behind a tree. When asked if anything was wrong, he looks shaken. Clearly distressed, he assumes Momose must have acted cold out of dislike. His voice rises as he declares that she must despise him for giving such a strange answer about shrimp. At home, after freshening up, Momose checks her to-do list for ways to impress Kugeyama, completely focused on her secret mission. Meanwhile, he remains entirely unaware that he's slowly being wrapped into the world of someone who quietly likes him so much. The next day, a crested ibis, the symbolic bird of Japan, sits on the classroom window, chirping softly. Kugeyama gazes at it with teary eyes, still heartbroken after being rejected by his first love the day before. Suddenly, he's startled as Momose appears behind him and abruptly urges him to meet her in the equipment room, loudly without explanation. Before he can respond, she walks off, leaving him in confusion. Panicking, Kugeyama stands up, wondering what kind of karma brought this on, since he hasn't done anything good today to deserve it. Meanwhile, Momose checks her plan for the day. Today's mission: make physical contact, either by covering his eyes or whispering a question about his favorite animal, to get his heart racing. During the break, Kugeyama watches the ibis fly in the sky with a worried expression, silently hoping everything will be okay. But as he opens the door, he's suddenly terrified. Momose appears behind him with an intense look and abruptly covers his mouth with both hands, as if kidnapping him. Startled, he collapses to the ground, with her still tightly covering his mouth from behind. Realizing the situation looks completely wrong and that she's messed up the plan, she quickly recalls the correct step from her mission list. In a panic, she realizes she covered his mouth instead of his eyes for the guessing game. Kogeyama, frozen and confused by the strange reaction, stays silent. Seeing the fear still on his face, she quickly moves in front of him and shouts awkwardly, "Guess who she is?" He stammers, still unsure, and answers, "Momose-san." But seeing her mission fail again, she panics. Frustrated, she steps closer and hurriedly whispers, "She is Cat-chan," instead of inquiring about his favorite animal. Kogeyama, completely puzzled by her strange behavior, gently grabs her and cautiously asks if she's okay. Her face is turning bright red. Seeing her flustered expression, he immediately lets go, embarrassed and confused, apologizing for touching her without thinking. Still overwhelmed, Momose stumbles back, flustered, and slams the door shut behind her. Left alone in the room, Kogeyama lowers his head in embarrassment, unsure how things spiraled into such a weird moment. As Momose stands outside the room, her cold, angry expression quickly fades, replaced by a deep crimson blush spreading across her cheeks. Later, after school, Kogeyama sits on the ground with his friend, still confused by Momose's actions. He wonders aloud if the way she looked into his eyes means she might have feelings for him. His friend, clearly uninterested and slightly annoyed, listens with a tired sigh. The next day, on his way to school, Kogeyama walks past a road sign warning about bears. The Asian black bear has emerged from hibernation and is leading signs of its presence. But nearby, he spots an elderly man calmly lying down beneath the sign, seemingly asleep. Alarmed and panicked, Kogeyama dashes over, kneels beside him, and gently cradles the man's head in his lap. Mistaking the scene for the worst, he shouts into his phone, calling his mother and crying out, "Miyazawa's grandfather has died." Kogeyama freezes in shock as the elderly man slowly opens his eyes with a faint smile, calmly assuring that he isn't dead. It turns out this is already the 5th time he has mistakenly declared him gone. Kogeyama exhales with a shaky breath, clearly rattled. He had truly expected it to be real this time. But the old man, completely unfazed, remarks that despite all the false alarms, he hasn't died even once. Upon entering the school, Kogeyama, clearly irritated, holds his head in frustration, once again upset with himself for acting so quickly without thinking. His friend, calm and amused, casually reminds him that this impulsive habit isn't new. Even in childhood, he was known by the nickname Hasty Hajime. He groans and snaps back, annoyed that his friend never told him. His friend speculates, maybe Momose dislikes him because of his habit of acting before thinking, or perhaps because he once approached her too suddenly. As he adds that with habits like these, he probably wouldn't be able to date someone like her, the thought hits him harder than expected. His expression dims, and he quietly tries to deny it to himself, though the sadness in his eyes says otherwise. Kogeyama's calm response leaves his friend confused, until Kogeyama suddenly snaps, raising his voice and insisting that Momose is just a concept. He explains that back in elementary school, whenever he spoke to her while walking, she always stayed quiet, simply listened, and watched him. Hearing his friend's comment, Kogeyama awkwardly smiles, now embarrassed at the thought that he had been talking to himself all along. After school, as he heads home, he's caught off guard when Momose suddenly approaches and silently hands him a marriage magazine. Confused and slightly alarmed, he watches as she points coldly to a page and tells him to read a section. Feeling the tension in her expression and the closeness of her presence, he grows increasingly anxious and panicked, unsure what this is all leading to. Momose, thinking about today's plan, to get him to call her by her real name, Akira, tries hard to stay composed. But as she points again and again to her name printed in the magazine, her hands tremble, her heart races, and sweat begins to form. She just wants to hear him say her name. Worried that her plan is falling apart, she starts to panic inside. Hajime, meanwhile, begins to realize that she might be giving him a chance to talk. Excited, he decides to start a light conversation. Standing with her in the middle of the road, he suddenly mentions that originally wedding dresses were black. But when she stays frozen, not reacting, his excitement quickly fades. He regrets the topic, thinking he's made another mistake. In truth, she is simply too nervous in his presence to speak at all. Seeing Momose's frozen reaction, he suddenly recalls a memory from childhood, how he used to talk endlessly while walking home beside her, even though she always ignored him with a cold expression. The memory stirs something inside him, and he starts to feel emotional, but he quickly shakes his head, trying to push it away. Still determined to keep the conversation going, he considers confessing how happy he is to see her again. But then he remembers his friend's warning that Momose might dislike his overly direct way of speaking, and his confidence falters. Even so, not wanting to miss the chance to connect, he unintentionally blurts out how happy he is that they ended up in the same school again. Still faced with Momose's cold expression, Kugeyama panics again. Hastily he tries to clarify, saying that although they were in different classes, at least they were in the same school and always walked home together. But as he sees her confused reaction, his anxiety grows. He quickly apologizes, worried he said something wrong. Then, to his shock, Momose calmly replies, after thinking for a moment, that they actually attended different elementary schools. Still puzzled, Kugeyama asks about the times they walked home together. She then explains that she used to visit her grandmother's house after school. He must have only seen her on the way back, not at school itself. Realization hits him. He had never actually seen her at school, only along the walk home. All this time, he had assumed they attended the same elementary school. Now feeling awkward and embarrassed, he begins to wonder if she's teasing him. After all, he had always tried to talk to her, genuinely believing they were classmates. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by the appearance of a baby wild boar nearby. At first, they're both momentarily amazed, but then quickly realize the danger. Where there's a cub, the mother is never far and likely aggressive. Without hesitation, Kugeyama grabs Momose's hand and runs, pulling her away at full speed. After several meters, he notices their hands still linked. Flushed with embarrassment, he quickly lets go and stammers an apology, explaining that he hadn't meant to do it on purpose. Frustrated by his own impulsiveness, Kugeyama clutches his head, helplessly blaming his habit of speaking before thinking. He keeps apologizing in a flustered panic, but when he sees Momose suddenly run off, he instinctively chases after her. As he follows, childhood memories flood back, how he always tried to talk to her, even though she never replied. He'd often approach her without invitation, asking about her favorite food or offering his own, fried shrimp and omelette rice. Every day, he'd come up with a new question about her favorite subject, school songs, or animals, yet never received a single answer. He especially remembers the last day of elementary school, when he excitedly asked her what animal she liked most. She had blushed slightly, but still remained silent. Now sprinting after her, Kugeyama keeps apologizing, calling out for being creepy without meaning to. But he can't catch up. Momose runs far too fast, her bright crimson cheeks giving away just how flustered she is. Both of them, helpless and breathless, keep running, one chasing in panic, the other fleeing in embarrassment. As the fuzzy plants bloom across the school grounds and the staff carefully pick each flower, spring quietly settles over the countryside. Today is the school's physical fitness test, and Kugeyama feels unusually nervous among the gathered students. His unease only deepens when he notes a graceful Momose with a ponytail, while the teacher explains the day's agenda, 8 separate events, with differences between boys' and girls' categories. The unexpected detail leaves him stunned. During the ball throw event, Kugeyama grips the ball, but his attention drifts, distracted by Momose-san. Her elegance briefly stuns him, leaving him momentarily blank. Seeing no movement from him, his confused friend yells, "Throw it already!" Kugeyama hesitates, remembering how he's never been interested in sports since childhood. But surprisingly, this moment feels fun. Meanwhile, his friend points out his eternal happiness. Suddenly, Kugeyama hears someone cheering for Momose. He turns toward her and sees her stepping forward, sleeves rolled up, her expression cold and focused. Her determined posture stuns him, realizing that she's not only a top student but also confident in sports. But the results surprise everyone. She throws the ball just 30 centimeters, manages 9 laps in the pacer test, a 21 centimeters long jump, and only completes 6 jumps in the weaving drill. Kugeyama notices the frustration and embarrassment in her trembling expression. While his friend nudges him to throw, he quietly listens to Momose's voice as she clutches her chest, clearly upset at not ranking first this year. When she returns, one of her friends teases her, saying, "She may ace the books, but even she can't win everything." The teasing, though playful, makes Kugeyama feel even more worried about her. But Momose doesn't give up. Instead, she stands again, eyes steady, heart reset. Her friend then whispers to the others that teasing her was just a way to motivate her to chase her goals. Impressed by Momose's determination to try again, Kugeyama throws the ball without thinking, and to everyone's shock, it flies over 60 meters, breaking the school record with a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour. Later, during the long jump, he leaps 6.55 meters, all while still thinking about Momose-san. After making a new school record, he happily drinks water, quietly admiring her from afar. But his friend, clearly annoyed, asks if he's still more focused on Momose than celebrating his own achievements. Suddenly curious, the friend asks why Kugeyama never joined a sports club despite being so talented. Anxiously, Kugeyama explains he's avoided sports since being hit by a ball as a kid, fearing the pain. But his friend doesn't seem too convinced by such a weak excuse. Their attention shifts again when they hear other students cheering for Momose, encouraging her not to give up. Kugeyama watches her silently, impressed by her strength and perseverance, even when she struggles. After the practice tests end, the teacher, slightly apologetic, informs Kugeyama they forgot to measure his seated forward bend. Since the gym is already cleaned up, the teacher asks him to use a small table nearby instead. Because the gym equipment is already cleared away, Kugeyama sits at a small table for the seated forward bend measurement. Legs extended back stiff, he grows nervous when he learns that Momose is the one recording the result. He tells the teacher, and, indirectly, Momose, that he is in her hands, though he is not sure this is wise. Momose approaches from behind with a tense, almost intimidating expression. Today's hidden mission is to make his heart flutter through physical contact, something as bold as a back hug if necessary. Earlier in the day he awkwardly shared his feelings, and she gave no response. That memory now heightens his confusion as she draws close. Instead of a steady assist, she lightly presses between his shoulders with just 2 trembling fingers. Her pulse races, she believes the mission may already be working. Kugeyama, baffled by the faint pressure, turns his head and asks whether she is actually pushing him. The sudden nearness startles her. Panic flashes across her face. She grabs his neck and forces his upper body forward. Pain shoots through him. He reaches for his neck, trying to recover, but her panic only deepens. In a frantic overcorrection, she twists his head the opposite way. Kugeyama slides off balance and drops flat to the floor, lying still with his head at an awkward angle. Later, he walks back across campus with bandages on his cheek and a heavily wrapped neck. He tells his friend that he is getting used to this kind of strange daily damage. The friend, worried, can only nod. As spring begins in the countryside, the school starts its special salmon artificial breeding unit. Meanwhile, in home economics class, Ms. Maruyama cheerfully announces that today's lesson is cookie baking. Blushing with excitement, she tells the girls to form groups. Momose stands silently, wearing her apron, eyes fixed on the ingredients with a serious, determined look. Her friends Mimi and Kinshin watch in awe, impressed by her focused posture. They wonder why she's suddenly so motivated. Momose carefully follows the recipe, measuring each ingredient precisely and mixing with care. She double-checks every step, determined not to make a single mistake. The 2 friends admire her dedication, thinking she might be the top student today. Seeing her work so hard, they offer to help by melting the chocolate. After all, they'll all be eating the cookies together. But when she gently declines, cheeks slightly red, she softly says she wants to give the cookies to someone special. That's why she wants everything perfect. Touched by her shy honesty, Mimi and Kinshin hold her hands and cheer her on, saying that with this much love and effort, the cookies will definitely turn out amazing. After school, Momose gives the cookies to Kageyama, but after one bite, his face twists in shock. The taste is terrible. Momose's expression fades to pale disappointment. Hiding nearby, her 2 friends anxiously watch from behind the wall, already knowing why. At the last moment, Akira accidentally mixed up the sugar with mustard powder. Realizing how harsh he sounded, Kageyama quickly apologizes, explaining he has a habit of never lying. While this honesty impresses the girls, it only flusters Momose more. The mustard hits his throat hard. He begins coughing uncontrollably. As he struggles to breathe, she panics. Trying to help, she attempts to offer him a handkerchief, but accidentally blocks his air instead, making it worse. In desperation, she runs to the garden hose tap nearby and sprays a blast of cold water on his face. Soaked and gasping, he looks stunned. Her friends immediately rush in to stop her, worried things have gone too far. Still catching his breath, Kageyama calms himself and gently asks if she has any more cookies left. Shocked, both friends duck behind the wall again. He smiles awkwardly and says the cookies have a unique taste, thanking her for making them just for him. Panicking again, he tries to deny his earlier reaction, puzzled by himself then awkwardly invites her to join them. But before he finishes, Momose suddenly dashes away. At that moment, his friend appears and casually suggests heading home to play a new game. Meanwhile, hiding behind a door, Momose wipes her sweating face, overwhelmed with embarrassment. Looking down at the handkerchief she tried to give him, she blushes and gently presses it to her cheek. Later, as she walks in a daze, her friends call from the rooftop. She looks up in surprise to see both of them giving her an encouraging thumbs up. Embarrassed, she shouts back, asking how long they've been watching. Now these two friends are part of this quiet little story, one where they've started thinking Kageyama might actually be a pretty sweet guy. A few days later, a wild animal wanders into the village. Locals help guide it back to safety, and as a result, the school arranges a special lesson on handling wild animals. During the class, the old man Lotaji encourages students to bravely observe the bear up close, though most are clearly terrified. Back at school, the teacher calls out Momose-san to return her test results. Praising her, the teacher announces she's achieved perfect scores across every subject, even though a few questions were particularly tricky. The teacher is especially shocked, not just by her top scores in English, which is somewhat expected, but by her excellence in modern Japanese, math, and chemistry. Some of the test questions were even pulled from the third-year curriculum, yet she still aced them. The biggest surprise comes from her Japanese history score. The average was barely 3 points, yet she scored a jaw-dropping 120. Watching this unfold, Kageyama stares in awe, clearly impressed by her brilliance. His friend, meanwhile, teases him for scoring just 0, or maybe 1, in multiple subjects. Kageyama shrugs it off, explaining he hates studying. His friend suggests he join a sports club since he's so talented physically. But Kageyama proudly flashes his score sheet and argues failing a subject doesn't hurt. But sports? Sports come with pain. Just as he finishes, the teacher slams a paper down and announces, much to his horror, that Kageyama is the only one in the class who officially failed. The teacher warns him that if he fails again next year, he'll be required to attend remedial lessons. With a sharp sigh, the teacher adds, "At least try to follow Momose-san's example. She's an intelligent girl." Kageyama winces, caught between admiration and dread. After class, Kageyama sighs, quietly wishing someone would at least teach him. Just then, Momose approaches, books stacked in her arms and a study band tied around her head. Without saying much, she places the books in front of him and reminds him about the risk of remedial lessons. She calmly declares that she will help. Kageyama panics and quickly refuses, calling it a burden, but Momose has a secret goal, using this study session as an excuse to hold his hand. She asks if he wants a private lesson. He nods, tightening his grip on the band as if bracing for battle. Momose begins by drawing something strange on the board and tells him to translate it into English. Kageyama, confused by the odd sketch, guesses awkwardly, "Dog?" She silently hands him a sticker and a fake flower, causing his eyes to widen with joy. But she corrects him. The answer is wrong, though close, and since it's the first question, she shows leniency. He tries again, cat, bear, bird, each wrong, yet she rewards him every time. Though puzzled, he grows more confident with each mistake. In the next question, she draws another shape. This time, he answers sadly, panda. Momose pauses, then nods. Correct. Frozen in disbelief, Kageyama suddenly slaps her shoulder in excitement. At that exact moment, Momose remembers her original plan, to hold hands. Flustered and losing control, she accidentally throws an open book directly at his face. He shouts in pain and collapses onto the floor. Momose immediately panics, eyes filled with tears, regretting everything. Later that night, Kageyama regains consciousness, lying on the classroom floor with the book's imprint still on his face. He sits up, dazed and unsure if he's in a dream. The next day, he tells everything to his friend, proudly admitting he feels smarter, even with a textbook print on his forehead. His friend laughs, but Kageyama hides the test result. He failed again. It's the time of the town's annual lion dance event, where the lion playfully bites children's heads, a countryside tradition said to bring good luck, though old stories claim those bitten are snatched away like in ghost tales. In the girls' changing room, Mimi panics after realizing she forgot her gym clothes. She freezes until Momose calmly offers her a spare set, revealing she has 5 extras. A few minutes later, when Kinshin asks for an eraser, Momose hands her one too, casually mentioning she keeps around 20. The same happens with a notebook. Momose pulls out one from a whole box. Both friends stare in awe, joking that she's like their personal school supplier. Momose simply explains she prepares everything in advance to avoid panic later. Her friends are quietly impressed by her calm planning and thoughtful habits. Sitting a few chairs away, Kageyama quietly admires Momose's meticulous planning habits. His friend, still wearing a calm expression, nudges him to head to the next lecture, remarking that Kageyama's admiration likely comes from being the complete opposite of her. But when he opens his bag, he's shocked to realize he forgot his textbook again, excusing it as being lost in thought. His friend dismisses the excuse, but Kageyama is puzzled by a letter from Momose asking to meet after school at Benton Rock. After school, Momose waits by the rock on Almi Town's Watchtower Island, holding a paper labeled "Today's Plan" as waves splash around her. When Kageyama arrives, he's puzzled and nervous, wondering why she called him to this place, known locally as the Lighthouse of Love. His confusion deepens when he notices 7 bags behind her, each filled with different items, making him worry he may have done something wrong. As Momose focuses seriously on the Today's Plan paper, both she and Kageyama are suddenly shocked when a monkey, having wandered into the village in search of food, dashes past them at high speed. In one swift move, it snatches the paper from her hands and runs off, leaving both of them stunned and speechless. Still frozen in panic, Momose stares at her empty hands, disheartened by her failed plan. Kageyama, clearly worried, rushes to her side and gently asks if she's okay, whether the monkey hurt her or if she's just scared. Seeing her still standing silently, as if lost for words, he grows more concerned. He gently asks if she needs a handkerchief, but quickly realizes he doesn't have one himself. With no response from her, he assumes she's still in shock. Feeling helpless, he picks up a stick and, with a gentle smile, offers it to her so she can write her feelings on the ground. At first, she appears puzzled, but then begins writing something in the sand. As Kageyama looks over, excited to read it, a sudden wave washes part of it away. Only a few words remain, and he misreads it as saying he is annoying. Frustrated, he shouts in confusion, questioning whether he's really that irritating. She, equally puzzled, hadn't meant that. She wanted to tell him that he's not annoying. She remains confused when a large wave crashes onto the shore, washing away all the words written in the sand. Embarrassed, she quickly grabs her bags and runs off. Kageyama shouts after her, asking if she really thinks he's annoying. But just at that moment, she trips on a rock. Before she can fall, he rushes forward and catches her in his arms. At that exact moment, a huge wave crashes over them, pulling both into the cold, salty water. Coughing and gasping, Kageyama quickly turns to Momose with concern, asking if she's all right. But he freezes in shock when he realizes she's no longer beside him. Just then, an old man from the town approaches and informs him that the girl has already left. Kageyama runs fast along the coast, but a few miles away, Momose is already standing alone. She gently lifts the edge of her skirt to shake off the water, wipes her wet hair back, and removes her soaked shoes. Her face flushes deep crimson as she recalls the moment he held her in his arms just minutes ago. Meanwhile, back at the shore, Kageyama sits gloomily beside the old man, sharing how Momose might think of him as annoying. With a gentle smile, the old man offers him a sea cucumber. It's the day of the sports festival, and an announcement echoes across the ground. Those who push beyond their limits will be rewarded. Annoyed, Kageyama mutters to himself. Thinking back, nothing has changed. He's still the same. While practicing with the ball, he grumbles about whoever came up with this festival, claiming even boxing feels less scary than pole toppling. His constant complaining irritates his friend, who sighs at his dramatic mood. At that exact moment, while kicking the ball in frustration, Kageyama twists his foot. A sharp crack follows, and he falls hard to the ground, wincing in pain. Now Kageyama sits quietly, his foot fully bandaged, bruises on his cheeks and nose. Still sulking, he grumbles bitterly about why he hates sports festivals, especially because of moments like this. His friend, clearly annoyed, reminds him it was entirely his own carelessness. He also relays the PE teacher's instructions. Kageyama is not allowed to participate further and should only observe the rest of the events. As he sits there, slouched and defeated, he overhears a group of girls chatting nearby about the upcoming first-year Big Ball Relay, one of the highlights of the Aoming High School Sports Festival. Hearing that, his expression shifts to one of fear. He remembers last year how that same massive ball knocked him down, almost flattening him. With a sigh of relief, he quietly thanks fate that he's not participating this year. But suddenly, from a few meters away, Kageyama notices Momose tying a headband around her forehead, her eyes filled with fierce determination. Her focused energy is so intense, it stuns the surrounding students, leaving them quietly impressed by her will to win this time. Upon seeing Momose's overwhelming energy, all the other classes quietly unite with one goal: not to let her win. As two students begin carrying the giant ball, the game starts. Everyone rushes toward the ball, trying to block its path. She stands at the back, even turning his face in the opposite direction, motivated. Sensing from the crowd's shout that the ball is approaching, Momose suddenly jumps high, aiming to grab it, but her timing is completely off, and she misses it badly. However, no one seems to notice, except Kageyama. Moments later, Mai excitedly runs up and hugs Momose, cheering her on as if she had just secured their victory. Soon, every student is impressed by the yellow team, whose giant ball keeps piling up victories. Meanwhile, Kageyama, terrified of being hit by the massive ball, hides himself behind the others, keeping a low profile. In this round, Momose tries her best again and again, determined to succeed. But despite her effort, her timing is still off, and she doesn't quite manage to perform properly. Even so, Mai rushes over once more, excitedly hugging her, cheering as if they've won the game again. While watching everything unfold, Kageyama is quietly shocked. With the red team now in the lead and the second-year event about to begin, part of him wants to join the excitement, but fear of pain holds him back, so he decides to keep observing from the sidelines. His mood darkens when he sees another boy from the class approach Momose, clapping and congratulating her for their victory. Not wanting to watch, Kageyama quickly turns his head away. Just then, a stray ball from the basket toss event lands near him. He sighs, reflecting on his decision to sit out of the sports festival. Convincing himself he's fine alone, he suddenly grabs the ball and with unexpected determination throws it from a long distance. It lands cleanly in the basket. Momose, watching from afar, is visibly impressed. Still gloomy, Kageyama lowers his head again just as Mai offers Momose a bottle of water. His thoughts are interrupted when his friend walks over and passes him a message from the teacher. It says if he's feeling better, he's welcome to join the next event, though it's completely fine to keep observing if he prefers. Lucky perhaps that he has the choice, since deep down, he still isn't ready to fully jump in. He is left stunned when Kageyama suddenly ties a headband around his head, eyes filled with determination. Deciding that to earn the right kind of attention, he must push himself beyond his limits. He steps forward to join the game. Now the boys' competition begins, but upon seeing Kageyama's suddenly nervous expression, his friend becomes shocked by this unexpected shift, especially since he confidently insisted before. As the announcer calls out the next event, the boys line up for tug-of-war. Kageyama grips the rope tightly, full of determination to show his strength. At the signal, they begin pulling with all their might. However, the opposing team includes members from different sports clubs, so powerful that they overpower Kageyama's team almost instantly, dragging them forward in a single pull. Kageyama and his teammates fall hard to the ground, like fish hauled out of water. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation on the back of his neck. Turning around, he's startled to see Momose standing at the edge of the cheering crowd, intensely staring at him. Her eyes seem almost glaring. Confused, he stares back, but she panics and runs off toward her friends. Her friends burst into laughter, teasing her. Embarrassed, she explained she wasn't glaring. She had only been silently praying for Kageyama's success, too shy to cheer out loud. Meanwhile, Kageyama remains puzzled by her unusual way of supporting him. While his friend Rendeiji, exhausted, decides to buy ice cream later, the next event, the human horse battle, is announced. Kageyama, excited and confident, calls for Rendeiji to join him. However, their opponents are muscular, towering members of the red team. In no time, the red team charges with full force, sending Kageyama's team flying. Now lying on the ground bruised and stunned, Rendeiji winces and wonders if Hajime is even still alive after the impact. Meanwhile, in the cheering section, the girls grow worried about their classmates' injuries. Suddenly, an announcement rings out. The final event, pole toppling, is about to begin. The winning team will earn triple points. If the yellow team wins, they have a chance to reclaim the lead. This news reignites Kageyama's hope. Fired up and determined, he rushes toward the pole, imagining the glory of a miraculous comeback. But the moment he arrives, he freezes. The red team, a wall of strength, has already surrounded the pole. Their intimidating presence fills the field. Seeing the chaos, Rendeiji hesitates and nervously asks if Hajime really wants to do this. He pauses too, suddenly questioning his decision. Is this worth risking serious injury, maybe worse? He dashes away at full speed, trying to escape the chaos, but just as he turns, he spots Momose still standing there, silently praying for him. Caught in her gaze, he halts. With no way to back out now, he turns again, and driven by sudden impulse, leaps high into the air, so high he soars over the crowd itself. Even he is shocked by his own action. In that instant, he realizes. He wants to see Momose smile. But just as he's about to reach the pole, overconfident and within arm's length, a massive opponent climbs up, grabs him by the collar, and scolds him for such a reckless stunt. Then, with a powerful kick, sends him crashing down hard. Later, Rendeji calls the infirmary to report Kageyama's condition. Now Kageyama lies in bed, fully bandaged and injured. The doctor informs him that while he's lucky his head wasn't seriously hurt, he absolutely cannot play for the rest of the day. Still, he lies there, gloomy and frustrated, haunted by his impulsive move and the thought that Momose will probably never talk to him again. But unknown to him, Momose stands quietly just outside the room, deeply worried. A few minutes later, as Kageyama lies on the infirmary bed, an instructor stops by to inform him about the upcoming cheering contest, then leaves to join the event. In a weak, pained voice, Kageyama asks if, given his serious injuries, he can finally skip PE classes. The teacher sternly refuses. Disappointed, he then asks if he can at least be excused from the football tournament, but that too is denied. Dejected, he sighs and asks if he can just sit and watch, but the teacher rushes off with a loud scolding, blaming him for his own recklessness. Left alone, Kageyama groans in frustration, regretting his impulsive actions. His body moved without thinking, and now he can't even find the courage to face Momose. Just as he sinks deeper into self-blame, the teacher suddenly reappears to inform him that a classmate has come to visit. When he looks toward the door, he freezes. It's Momose. Back at the cheering contest, Mime notices Akira's absence and looks shocked. Both she and Kenshin quickly realize that Momose must be worried about Kageyama and has gone to visit him. They grow concerned when they remember how awkwardly she speaks, often relying on scripts to talk. In the infirmary, she stands silently by Kageyama's bed, fidgeting as if trying to ask something. Kageyama, deeply embarrassed by her sudden visit, struggles to find words. Then, with a blushing face and trembling voice, Momose leans slightly toward him, closing her eyes as she softly asks if his injuries hurt. Startled and moved by her concern, Kageyama first glances at his walking stick. Then, trying to reassure her, he suddenly leaps up with one hand and hangs from a nearby crutch, flashing a bright smile. He is totally fine. No need to worry, he says proudly. Seeing him act so energetic, Momose finally smiles, her cheeks turning red, as she closes her eyes with relief. Kageyama watches her, completely mesmerized by her expression. Just as he's about to speak again, the door swings open. The doctor walks in, speaking on the phone and asking if the cheering team needs members, as most are already injured. Startled, both of them freeze. Momose, now flustered, quickly hides behind the wall. The doctor mentions that once Kageyama's treatment is done, he'll be cleared to rejoin the sports events. So he happily waves at her, wishing to see her again. But as she leaves, he immediately grabs his walking stick for support. His wounds hurt so badly that he cries out in pain. The doctor, also worried, advises him to rest. While shouting, he scolds himself for doing such a reckless stunt despite being injured. He wonders if he likes her, but then quickly rejects the thought, thinking they are too different. She's amazing and completely opposite to him. Though he tries to stop such strange thoughts, he helplessly clutches his chest, lying there, emotionally overwhelmed, injured, and unsure how to deal with his feelings. As rumors spread about a strange creature spotted in Japan, a hunting contest was announced with a reward of 1 million yen, marking the start of summer in the countryside. At school, Kageyama sits gloomily, clutching his heart as he shares his feelings with Rendeji during lunch. Though he isn't planning to confess yet, he's still teary-eyed and worried about the possibility of rejection. Rendeji, with a cold expression, responds bluntly, warning that if he confessed now, he'd probably be rejected. Leaning against a tree, Rendeji explains that Momose's visit to the infirmary might have been a sudden, emotion-driven action without deep affection. He then firmly advises Kageyama to focus on bettering himself until he becomes someone worthy of her attention, so that her affection naturally grows. With a serious tone, he warns that a clumsy or rushed confession with low affection points would likely end in rejection. Motivating him with conviction, Rendeji encourages him to increase those points through effort, and only then confess, confidently adding that this strategy has helped him win over many girls. Knowing this, Kugeyama becomes very excited, eagerly notes down everything, and thanks Rendeji for the advice. Meanwhile, Rendeji sighs to himself, thinking sadly that all those girls he mentioned were only from dating games. Now recalling their awkward and negative first meeting, Kugeyama decides to wait patiently and slowly improve himself, aiming to become worthy of Momose. But just a few minutes later, he suddenly finds himself in a suffocatingly small space, uncomfortably close to Momose-san, so close that he can't even move. Panicked and confused about how he ended up in this situation, he hears the voices of other students entering the room. Shocked, both he and Momose freeze, and in panic, he grabs her and hides in a nearby spot, quickly closing the door. As the students settle in and continue chatting, Kugeyama, overwhelmed by the extreme closeness, begins to panic even more, afraid that this accidental situation might ruin the progress of his relationship with her. As both hide inside the locker, Momose blushes while looking at today's planned script. Her mission is to give Kugeyama her handmade cupcakes. She grows upset, thinking she's already failed the plan. Meanwhile, Kugeyama is panicking, worried that being found together in the locker would be humiliating. Just as he's about to escape, he's shocked when Momose, with a nervous expression, suddenly puts a cupcake into his mouth. In his flustered state, he doesn't even realize what it is. She tries to stick to the plan, but noticing he's already reaching for the knob to leave, she panics. He quickly holds her hand to stop her. She turns around, blushing while he tries to calm her down. But she becomes even more anxious, flailing her arms in embarrassment. In the commotion, the locker door bursts open. At that exact moment, someone outside screams, and all the students rush to the window. A bear cub is wandering into the schoolyard. Seizing the opportunity, Momose and Kugeyama dash out of the locker and escape. Kugeyama looks around to make sure she's okay, but she's already disappeared. He's still catching his breath when Rendeji appears and casually asks how things went with Momose. Kugeyama, flustered, shyly admits he's confused about her feelings. That night in her room, Momose writes in her journal, cheeks red as she recalls how close they were in the locker. Smiling, she calmly plans her next move with a hopeful heart. Later, as Kugeyama stands tired on a bridge, he asks Rendeji if there's any plan besides raising affection points to make her fall for him. Rendeji, half joking, suggests he try loading a previous save file. The next day at school, everyone eats lunch while chatting about how, in the countryside, children are well trained in skills like identifying stones, especially jade. Mimi teases Momose for not even knowing how to ride a bicycle. When Momose explains she grew up in Tokyo, where bikes weren't necessary, her friends grow annoyed at her excuse. They decide to teach her how to balance properly when they notice Kugeyama nearby, awkwardly carrying a huge pile of books, even balancing some on his head. Rendeji warns him it's dangerous, but Kugeyama insists he's saving time for the trip and even asks Rendeji for help. Watching him, the girls suddenly smile. They've come up with an idea. The next morning, Kugeyama is shocked to find Momose waiting on the road with a bicycle. She greets him with a cheerful good morning and asks for his help. He freezes, realizing this must be Mimi's doing. She likely arranged for him to teach Momose how to ride. Noticing her nervous expression, he's still puzzled about why she chose him specifically. But then it clicks. This is a chance to increase affection points. Determined, he agrees to help. As she puts on her helmet, she silently recalls her mission for the day, to hug him. Kugeyama dares to teach Momose how to ride a bicycle. He first helps her straddle the seat and places her feet firmly on the pedals. But to his shock, she somehow flies forward into the air and nearly falls, until he rushes ahead, throws himself to the ground, and breaks her fall on his back. Still confused by how she even managed to fall like that, he sees her worried expression and scolds himself, realizing it's her first time, so he needs to teach her more carefully. He attaches training wheels, then confidently assures her that now it's impossible to fall. Yet unbelievably, she flies off again, legs up like she's holding a steering rope, and he once more dives beneath her to catch the fall. This time she lands squarely on him again. Kugeyama blames the training wheels and scolds himself for not guiding her properly. Determined, he grabs the bike from the front, thinking there's absolutely no way she can fall now. But on the next attempt, she still manages to fall, only this time, his head ends up under the wheel, and they both tumble straight into a rice field. Covered in mud and lightly injured, they slowly stand up, Seeing her sad expression, Kugeyama gives in and offers her a ride instead. He sits on the seat and tells her to hop on the back so he can show her how it's done. She hesitantly sits behind him, but as he starts pedaling, she remembers her mission to hug him. Flustered by the thought, she panics, shakes, and both of them fall again, same as before, straight into the field. A nearby old man, passing by, watches in concern and asks if they're all right. Later that day, Momose comes home, gently removes her muddy uniform, and soaks in a warm bubble bath. Remembering how close she sat behind him, she gets so flustered that she hides under the water, prompting her mother to call out, telling her not to stay underwater too long. Meanwhile, at Kugeyama's house, he limps in, bruised and exhausted. Seeing his condition, his mother stares at him in shock and asks if he got into a fight with a bear. The next morning in the countryside, a Shiba Inu looks sad after a tanuki steals their food, but that's just part of life out there. As the school bell rings, Kenshin is surprised to see Akira arrive right on time, especially since a train hit a deer and all lines are stopped. Her efficiency becomes even more impressive when she casually explains that she changed 5 buses to make it on time. Everyone smiles, imagining her adventurous morning journey. She calmly adds that she was rarely late in elementary or middle school, so she didn't want to break that record now. Her friends are genuinely impressed by her dedication. Kugeyama arrives at school with a dirt-stained uniform and an exhausted face, clearly worn out, but deeply impressed by Momose's determination to manage everything perfectly. Seeing his messy state, Rendeji suggests he clean himself up quickly. A few minutes later, Rendeji asks if he wants to visit the bookstore after school, but Kugeyama smiles and declines, explaining that he has to visit a relative's house and catch a train no matter what. After school, he finally manages to catch the train and is surprised, almost frozen, to see that Momose-san is also in the same carriage. But then he realizes the train only has one carriage. Seeing her calmly reading, he's once again impressed by how far she traveled, even that morning, just to make it to school on time. At the next station, feeling hungry and not wanting her to notice, he quietly decides to get off and buy something to eat. As they step out of the train and walk outside, he becomes puzzled seeing her carrying bags of seafood in her hands. Curious, he follows her, only to be shocked when she starts eating a simple snack instead. Confused about why she bought seafood, he hides behind a tree and watches. That's when he catches a glimpse of her picking up an airplane-shaped stick. Suddenly, she starts moving with it like she's acting out a hero's role. Then, as she accidentally drops all the food on the ground, she grips the stick more seriously and begins swinging it like a knight in training. The intensity of her movements stuns him. She then picks up her luggage and starts walking again, with him silently following. Soon, she finds another stick and begins practicing again. But he grows worried, seeing her sad expression when she accidentally drops the stick under the bridge. At that exact moment, a cat appears, making her smile, and he feels relieved. But suddenly, a swarm of cats surrounds her. To her surprise, they begin attacking, drawn by the smell of seafood. Concerned, he throws down his bag and runs to help her. But just as he reaches, she slips from the bridge and falls into the water, only to be unexpectedly kidnapped by the bear and the cats. He runs to catch up but can't find her anywhere, so he climbs down the slope, growing more anxious when she's still nowhere to be seen. Then he spots her hiding behind a tree, leaves tangled in her hair. Worried, he calls out to her, but she panics, looks around wildly, and suddenly attacks him with the sharp pincers of a red snow crab. Startled, he tries to calm her down, but as he shields himself, he slips and falls down the mountain, having now witnessed a completely new, tomboyish side of Akira. The scene shifts to the morning of the entrance ceremony. Anime Mimi and Kinetsu Tsumuji are walking to school when the latter spots Momose sitting on a chair. Surprised, she tells Mimi that girl is giving a speech today. Curious, Mimi asks more, and Kin-chan explains that Momose had moved to Tokyo, then transferred back. She also mentions that Momose was with them at South Elementary School. Watching Momose hiding behind a pillar, Mimi feels irritated, thinking Tokyo girls always underestimate countryside girls. But then Momose suddenly gets up, scrubs the table, flattens it, neatly arranges her books, and politely asks an old lady to sit there. Both girls are surprised and impressed by her manners. When Kin-chan praises her, Mimi, still annoyed, suggests they follow her to find a flaw. As they trail her, they see Momose picking up trash, donating money, and helping others. Though impressed, Mimi complains that this perfect girl makes her feel bad. Kin-chan scolds her, pointing out that Momose is seriously focused on her speech. even while walking. Suddenly, she waves her hands in the air, mumbles something, then drops to the ground and places her palms down like she's practicing wall slams. The girls are startled. It looks scary. Just then, a gust of wind blows her speech paper into the air. Without hesitation, Momose jumps into muddy water to catch it. Panicking, the girls drop their bags and run to help. Momose stumbles in fear, but Kin-chan catches her. She shouts for Mimi to grab the paper. Mimi, a basketball club member, leaps and catches it. She's shocked and asks why Momose dove into dirty water just for a speech. But when they check, it's not the speech. It's a today's plan sheet with stickers and the question, which food did he like? Seeing the girl's expressions, Momose mumbles that there's someone she wants to marry. Soaked and holding the wrong paper, Momose realizes the mix-up. All three burst out laughing, stomachs hurting. A few minutes later, they arrive at the entrance ceremony. Momose, now clean and in uniform, gives her speech, relieved that everything worked out. Meanwhile, Mimi and Kin-chan awkwardly stand in t-shirts. When the teacher asks if they're new students without uniforms, they quickly apologize, lying that they forgot to bring them. The next day, Momose surprises the girls with cute cat mascot cookies. They're delighted. She bows and thanks them for lending her their uniforms for the speech. Curious, they ask how she knew they liked the mascot. Momose says she noticed it on their keychains and guessed. Then she bows again and apologizes for looking at their things without permission. Blushing, the girls exchange glances, smile, and hug her. They finally become friends. Later after school, Momose stands in front of Kugeyama with a cake stand. Watching from a window, Mei tells Kin-chan that, quirks aside, Akira might actually succeed in love. But just then, Kugeyama slips and falls, cake landing on his head. Behind him, Momose panics. Her foot had slipped and caused the accident. Both girls sigh in disappointment, regretting their earlier hopes. In Japan, seafood is considered such a treasured gift that even children can identify the species just by tasting it. At Rendeiji's house, while playing a game, he is shocked to learn that Kugeyama still hasn't changed Momose-san's contact information. Turning around and seeing Kugeyama's disappointed expression, he scolds him for not making any progress in their relationship. Kugeyama, emotionally, admits that even though he wants to, he hasn't been able to act. Then, boldly sitting on the chair, Rendeiji gives him advice, revealing that earlier today he overheard Mime asking Momose-san to wait for her in the library because she'd be late due to club activities. Kugeyama is stunned as he finally realizes Rendeiji's plan. After school, Kugeyama arrives at the Aomi local library, determined to ask Momose for her contact information. But in the pin-drop silence of the library, it takes all his courage to even speak. Sitting at one chair, he feels awkward just being there. He's never come to the library to study before, so following someone here feels especially creepy. Embarrassed, he decides to head home, but just as he stands, he's suddenly surprised when Momose-san arrives and places her book on the table with a gentle, cute expression. Relieved that she hasn't noticed him yet, he quickly grabs a book and turns to the opposite side. However, he becomes puzzled when he hears the loud sound of Momose's heartbeat in the quiet library. As she spots him and realizes why he's there, her panic rises, and now both of them are flustered in the silence. While feeling extremely nervous, he closes the book and stands up, pretending to grab another one from the shelf, anything to avoid the awkwardness of asking her directly for her contact info. But as he picks up one book, he suddenly freezes, shocked to see Momose-san's eyes peeking through the gap between the shelves. Panicking, he quickly places the book back and immediately grabs another one, trying to act casual, though his heart is pounding. While he's still shivering, he suddenly hides himself, thinking maybe it was just a hallucination. As Momose-san gets up to grab a book as well, he nervously steps back, trembling. He sees this as a good opportunity to talk to her, so he starts to move quickly toward her, but suddenly stops when an old lady with a bright smile asks if he is Hajime, Ryota's friend from elementary school. He gives an awkward smile, completely confused, as he had no idea that his friend's mother works here. Now he becomes disheartened as Momose sits back down at her seat, so with no other option, he starts reading his book. Time is running fast, and while he's trying to focus, his mind keeps planning. He just wants to sit next to her, like someone in love would. As he looks at the pages, he wonders if it would be weird to directly ask for her contact info. Maybe he should wait until she stands up again. But feeling that might not work, he decides to write his question on a piece of paper and hand it to her. That would feel more thoughtful. But his thoughts are interrupted when an announcement plays. The library will close at 5 p.m. So he immediately looks up and is shocked to realize that he was so busy planning. He didn't even notice she had already left. While walking home, he's even more surprised to see her sitting on a bench, holding a pigeon in her hand, surrounded by flying birds. She's waiting for Mame. Seeing this as a chance, he excitedly starts talking, but out of nervousness, he says something completely wrong. Still gathering all his courage, he finally asks her for her contact info. But just as he does, the 5 p.m. chime rings loudly, drowning his words. She can't understand anything, and he's left completely annoyed. Then, finally gathering his courage again, he smiles nervously and directly asks her if they can exchange contact info. It feels like a mesmerizing moment. She is sitting there blushing, nervously looking down while birds chirp all around. She looks puzzled for a second, then quietly agrees. They finally exchanged contact details. He humbly bows, wishes to see her again, and walks away. But after taking just a few steps, he freezes, overwhelmed with happiness and excitement. He can't believe he finally got her number. Still, he keeps his true feelings hidden, afraid that confessing might make her uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Mimi comes running toward Akira, apologizing for being late. But noticing something different, Mimi grows curious and asks if she's okay. Momose, still flustered and a little sweaty, shyly nods, because she had clearly heard when he said he wanted to know more about her.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand,